Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's uh, this expectation of precision.
Oh, absolutely. It feels very scientific.
It feels almost like engineering, right? Like
Yeah.
you break your arm, the X-ray shows that jagged white line on the film, and the doctor just points to it and says, well, there it is.
Right. It feels empirical. The
Hmm,
bone is structurally compromised. The problem is visible, localized, and completely undeniable.
exactly. But then you step out of the clinic, you walk outside, and suddenly you are completely immersed in the sheer, like unpredictable chaos of the physical world.
Which is everywhere.
It really is. Cars are speeding by, splashing puddles. A stray dog is barking wildly on the corner. Someone has a ladder leaning precariously against a building while they clean their gutters.
Sounds like a typical Tuesday.
Right. And we navigate all of this chaos with a quiet underlying assumption that eventually something in that physical world is going to catch up with us. We get sick. We get hurt. It's just, the cost of doing business as a human being.
Yeah. Vulnerability is basically viewed as the fundamental tax we pay for having a physical body. Biology just guarantees a certain degree of fragility.
But what if it didn't? Imagine a philosophy that says getting sick or even uh, getting T-boned in a busy intersection is 100% preventable.
Wow. 100%.
Yep. And not by driving defensively or taking daily multivitamins, but entirely through the invisible architecture of your own mind.
That is quite the claim.
It is. So welcome to today's deep dive. Today, for you listening, we are pulling apart a highly provocative 2011 essay translated from Chinese. It's titled The Mystery and Value of Health.
Which was written by Sweffing, right?
Yes, written by Suefeng, translated by Treasure, and edited by Kair. And the mission of this deep dive is to explore the author's radical framework. He claims that humans should not only never suffer illness, but should actually achieve a death entirely free from disease.
Which, that requires completely dismantling our modern understanding of cause and effect. The author is demanding that we take absolute, uncompromising personal responsibility for our physical reality. We are talking about the logical extreme of the mind-body connection.
Pushed so far that it almost breaks the boundaries of physics. Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how the author believes we can achieve this perfect, indestructible state, we have to look at the foundational rule of the universe he's constructing.
The rules of his game, so to speak.
Exactly. He writes that the secret to staying healthy and avoiding illness lies entirely in having and this is a quote, perfect soul and a complete consciousness.
Meaning the physical body is secondary.
Right. He argues that all causes of disease reside in what he calls the non-material structures of life.
What's fascinating here is the absolute nature of the guarantee being offered.
Yeah, he doesn't leave much wiggle room, does he?
None at all. If you read the text closely, the author isn't merely suggesting that a positive mindset boosts your immune system or lowers your cortisol
Which is
level.
what we usually hear from wellness influencers.
Right. He states explicitly that if there is no problem with that non-material structure, there is, quote, no possibility of illness or disaster. Not a reduced probability, no possibility.
Let me try to visualize this non-material structure concept for you. Think of your current existence like a computer sitting on a desk.
Okay, I'm with you.
You've got the hardware, right?
Mm.
The physical machine, the glass screen, the silicon chips, the keyboard. That is your physical body.
The stuff you can touch.
Exactly. Then you have the software, the invisible lines of code running underneath it all, dictating every single pixel that lights up on the monitor. That software is your consciousness.
Ah, I see where this is going.
So what Swifting is arguing is that if the software's code is flawlessly written, pure, orderly, without a single bug, it is physically impossible for the hardware to ever crash or get a virus.
Because the physical machine only breaks if the invisible code commands it to break.
Exactly.
That is a very useful way to frame it, but we have to push that analogy even further to really match the extremity of Shuifeng's claim.
How so?
Well, in standard medicine, we treat the hardware. If the screen cracks, we replace the glass. If the fan gets dusty, we clean it out.
Makes sense.
But this philosophy insists that consciousness is not just an operating system running on the brain's hardware. Consciousness is the literal master blueprint that constantly generates physical reality.
Wait, generates it.
Yes, it doesn't just run the computer, it manifests the computer moment by moment. Therefore, an uncorrupted consciousness physically cannot generate a corrupted body.
Oh. Which, that forces a pretty massive question.
Why do people get sick?
Yeah. If a flawless consciousness is the default setting that guarantees perfect health, how do the lines of code get corrupted? Why are the hospitals completely full?
He has an answer for that.
He does. The text uses a central metaphor to explain this corruption, and it's a vivid one. He calls it the soul garden.
Right. The soul garden is his framework for visualizing the relentless maintenance required to keep that non-material structure intact.
It's all about maintenance. To remain perfectly healthy, one must keep their soul garden entirely free of weeds.
And he is incredibly specific about what qualifies as a weed, isn't he?
Oh, very specific. He lists out what is essentially a masterclass in human flaws. The weeds are desire, anger, ignorance, pride, and jealousy.
A pretty heavy list already.
And he doesn't stop there. He goes on to include envy, complaining, comparing, selfishness, laziness, greed, and avid possession.
Basically, any pessimistic or gloomy mood is a weed growing in your non-material structure.
Yeah, any bad day you have is a weed.
The text dictates a state of constant, aggressive internal vigilance. The instruction is that these weeds must be cleaned up thoroughly and immediately.
Or else what?
Otherwise, good health will be extremely hard to maintain. It is basically a zero-tolerance policy for negative human emotion.
Now wait, I have to push back on the sheer scale of this. Look, for you, the listener, think about your own morning commute.
Oh boy.
Say someone cuts you off in traffic and you experience a flash of intense anger. Or you find yourself complaining about a meeting you have to attend later.
Which happens to everyone.
Right. And under a normal mind-body framework, we accept that being chronically angry might give you high blood pressure over 20 years.
Sure, the stress takes a toll.
But the author pushes this so far past standard biology. He literally asks the reader, have you been hurt in a car accident? Have you been bitten by a dog or a snake?
He mentions twisting an ankle too, right?
Yes. Have you fallen from a high place or twisted your ankle? He claims that every single one of these physical accidents is a direct result of an imperfect consciousness.
It's quite the leap.
He strictly commands, and I quote, never blame other factors.
It sounds absurd to our modern rational ears. I mean, a dog bites you, and standard logic says the dog was aggressive or frightened.
Exactly. How does my flash of anger in traffic yesterday cause a stray dog to bite my leg today? It doesn't make any sense.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what we are looking at is the absolute zenith of an internal locus of control.
An internal locus of control. What does that mean exactly?
Well, in behavioral psychology, your locus of control dictates how much agency you believe you have over your fate.
Okay.
Most people operate with a mixed locus. You control your work ethic, but you acknowledge the reality of external chaotic forces, like a reckless driver or a wild animal.
Sure, I can't control the weather.
Right. But Zhu Feng entirely rejects the existence of external random forces.
So it's almost like the mind possesses a gravitational pull.
That is the exact mechanism he is proposing. He is arguing that our internal moral and emotional state literally bends the physical probability of the world around us.
That is wild.
In his universe, a polluted consciousness, one overgrown with the weeds of greed or jealousy, acts as a powerful magnet for negative physical events.
So the anger in your soul garden doesn't just raise your blood pressure.
No, it alters the physical environment to attract the snake, or it manifests the structural weakness in the ladder that causes you to fall.
A car accident isn't a statistical inevitability of traffic.
No, it is a physical symptom of a spiritual failing.
Wow. That is a staggering burden of responsibility to place on a person's shoulders.
It's immense.
If you get sick, or if you twist your ankle, it is a moral failure. You allowed a weed to grow.
And we all know how hard it is to keep a garden perfectly weed-free.
Exactly. And if health is strictly dictated by the gravitational pull of your soul garden, then pretty much everything humanity has ever invented to treat the physical body is a complete waste of time.
Because it's treating the wrong thing.
Which is exactly what the author concludes. He delivers a sweeping, almost breathtaking dismissal of thousands of years of human medical innovation.
He really doesn't hold back. He doesn't just wave it away vaguely either. He takes aim at the entire pantheon of medical history.
He specifically targets the foundational pillars of Eastern medicine first.
He actually lists them out, doesn't he?
He does. He points to the foundational ancient texts, specifically naming the ancient emperor's classic internal manuscripts and Sheng Nong's herbal classic.
Those are massive historically significant texts.
Right. And he calls out the legendary historical doctors by name, figures like Biang, Kuo-tuo, Zhang Zongjing, Sun Simiao, and Li Shizhen.
These are titans of medical history.
Yes, people who map the human body and catalog thousands of treatments. He even mentions Emperor Qin Shi Huang's famous obsessive pursuit of elixirs of immortality.
And his verdict on all of them.
Xu looks at all of this monumental effort and basically says, you are all just scratching the surface. You've missed the point entirely.
The audacity is remarkable. Dismissing figures like Bianc and Lifechanyuan in this context is like dismissing Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein when discussing physics.
It's a total teardown, but he doesn't stop with antiquity. He brings that exact same dismissal right up to the modern present day.
Nobody's safe.
Modern Western medical science. He dismisses it. Traditional Chinese medicine. Dismissed. Taoist healthcare. Meridian collateral theory. Key collection.
Let me guess. Dismissed.
He tosses all of it out. He even points to modern specific compilations. He mentions the treasures of health, put together by top Chinese medical experts. He dismisses modern health magazines and calls out Yi's 5-volume Wisdom of Avoiding Illness.
He really did his homework just to say it's all useless.
To Xuefeng, this vast, misty ocean of human knowledge, from a surgeon with a scalpel to a Taoist master collecting qi, is utterly ineffective.
He explicitly categorizes these vast, disparate bodies of work as ineffective attempts at solutions.
I'm trying to wrap my head around grouping a modern Western surgeon and a master of key collection into the exact same category of wrong.
It's a very broad brush.
It's like, imagine you're driving your car and the check engine light starts flashing on the dashboard.
Always a stressful moment.
Right. And all of human medical history, whether it's an herbal remedy or a complex surgery, is essentially just humanity figuring out incredibly sophisticated ways to put a piece of opaque tape over that flashing dashboard light.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. You're hiding the symptom, but you're too scared to open up the hood and actually rebuild the engine block.
This raises an important question, though. Why does he view such radically different medical traditions as equally flawed?
Yet why is manipulating the body's energy meridians just as useless as a chemical pharmaceutical?
The underlying logic of his viewpoint is that any treatment applied to the physical body, or even to the body's subtle energy channels, is fundamentally a waste of time if the non-material structure remains polluted.
If the software code we talked about earlier still has bugs.
Exactly, because the hardware will just crash again.
That makes sense within his framework.
Precisely. If the root cause of your illness is the weed of jealousy, taking an herbal remedy for your stomach or getting surgery on your knee is entirely irrelevant to the actual problem.
The text uses a wonderful visceral analogy for this, doesn't it?
It does. It says, treating the physical body while ignoring the soul garden is like trying to scratch an itch from the outside of a heavy leather boot.
Scratching an itch from the outside of a boot. That is a wild, frustrating image.
It perfectly captures the futility he sees in medicine.
You're furiously scratching the leather, but you're never actually touching the skin where the problem lives. Okay, so if every hospital, every herbalist, and every acupuncturist on earth is just scratching the outside of the boot, how do we actually get inside?
How do we fix the root cause?
Right. If our consciousness is the engine and we need to rebuild it, what is the manual?
That is where the essay shifts from a philosophical critique into a surprisingly literal instruction manual. It proposes a highly specific mechanism for purification.
And it is incredibly easy for a philosopher to sit back, write a provocative essay, and make grand, untestable claims about the universe.
Oh, philosophers do it all the time.
Anyone can say pure consciousness equals perfect health, because it's usually impossible to prove or disprove. But the author doesn't hide behind abstract philosophy. He actually proposes an observable, real-world experiment to prove his validity.
Which is exceptionally rare for this kind of writing. He moves from metaphysical theology into a concrete, falsifiable timeline.
Here's where it gets really interesting. First, he details his singular solution. There is only one pathway to achieving this perfectly pure consciousness, and he calls it taking the way of the greatest creator.
And what does that entail?
This involves a very specific synthesis. You have to listen to the teachings of Jesus Christ and Buddha Sakyamuni and conduct your daily life according to the guidance of gods, celestial beings, and saints.
It is a deeply syncretic approach. He is blending the moral and spiritual frameworks of major historical figures into a single unified path.
Yeah, suggesting that Christianity and Buddhism, when combined and distilled, hold the key to weeding the soul garden.
But he doesn't just leave it as advice for the individual reader, does he?
No. He introduces a specific active group of people who are supposedly living this exact truth. He calls them the Lifechanyuan celestials.
Okay.
And they have settled in a physical place he refers to as the second home, which is also noted in the text as the new oasis for life.
So an actual physical community.
Yes, these are the people actively practicing this weed-free, perfectly pure consciousness lifestyle. They're basically the beta testers for his software.
And this is where the empirical challenge is laid down. The author boldly writes, quote, "Facts speak louder than words."
He invites the entire world to just watch. He says, don't just take my philosophical word for it, observe these residents.
It's a huge gamble on his part.
It is. And remember, you, the listener, this essay was published in July of 2011. Westfing's prediction is that if people observe these Chanyuan celestials in the second home over the next few years, they will witness something impossible.
What's the prediction?
The residents will simply stop getting sick. Furthermore, any residents who enter the second home already ill will rapidly recover their health without traditional medicine.
The confidence of that claim is striking. He states that if this community becomes genuinely, visibly disease-free over the coming years, it will serve as absolute, undeniable proof of the validity of his words.
It's black and white for him.
From an analytical standpoint, offering a falsifiable test for a spiritual miracle anchors a purely metaphysical argument directly into the physical, observable world.
Right.
If people in the second home get sick, his entire philosophical architecture collapses. If they don't, well, it changes the trajectory of human history.
And his conclusion is absolute. Once this is proven by observing the second home, everyone in the world must abandon their current paths and adopt this lifestyle as soon as possible.
It's the ultimate put your money where your mouth is moment in philosophy.
It certainly is. It demands that the reader not just ponder the ideas, but track the physical results. So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We really have. We've covered some truly extreme ground today. We've talked about a universe where twisting your ankle on a hike is the direct cosmic result of a moment of jealousy.
A universe with a zero-tolerance policy for weeds.
Yeah. We've discussed a worldview that demands we abandon all modern medicine because it's just scratching a leather boot. But even if you don't subscribe to the absolute extremes of this belief system, there is profound, undeniable value in what this text is asking us to do.
I agree. The extremity of Zhou premise shouldn't obscure the utility of his core metaphor. The soul garden is a powerful tool for self-assessment.
Exactly. When was the last time you really took inventory of your own non-material structure? Think about the mundane moments of your day.
It's easy to let things slide.
It is. The text forces us to recognize how deeply the weeds of complaining, of constantly comparing ourselves to coworkers or neighbors, of holding on to lingering anger, actively shape our moment-to-moment experience of life.
It really reframes how you look at a bad mood.
Whether or not you believe a pessimistic mood magnetically attracts a dog bite, clearing out that mental underbrush undoubtedly changes the physical reality of how your body feels and operates.
It's an invitation to recognize that the internal environment we cultivate, our emotional baseline, has a heavy, tangible impact on the external reality we perceive and interact with daily. You may not control the chaotic events outside, but you have absolute sovereignty over the garden inside.
Which brings us to a final lingering thought to leave you with today. The author of this text demands that we aggressively, relentlessly uproot every single negative emotion to achieve a perfectly structured consciousness.
No exceptions allowed.
No anger, no complaining, no gloomy moods ever. It must be pristine. But let's think back to our opening image, that chaotic, unpredictable physical world outside the doctor's office.
The barking dogs and speeding cars.
If we view our minds as natural gardens trying to survive and navigate that chaos, we have to ask, is a garden without any weeds truly a healthy, resilient ecosystem?
That is a phenomenal question. In nature, resistance and friction are often what creates strength.
Right. If you are so terrified of a single negative emotion that you police every fleeting thought, at what point does that pursuit of absolute perfection become its own form of suffering?
It can become an obsession.
Does the constant anxious obsession with plucking out every single negative feeling eventually become the most destructive weed of all?
It's the paradox of perfection. Sometimes the stress of trying to be perfectly healthy is what actually makes us sick.
Something to mull over the next time you find yourself trying to control the uncontrollable chaos of life. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the non-material structure of life. Until next time, take care of your garden weeds and all.